So our keynote speaker, Professor Ian Plimer, is a highly regarded scientist, academic, author, board member, with strongly held views on the science of climate change and a topical subject of energy policy. His critics call him controversial, his supporters call him refreshing. You get to make up your own mind. Please join me in welcoming Ian Plimer.
Well, what a pitiful group of hominids you are. You've been on this planet for a very short period of time, and you seem to think you can drive major planetary processes. Well, have I got news for you? It was on a Thursday, 4,567 million years ago, that this planet formed. And for less than 20% of the time, we've had ice on planet Earth. The rest of the time, it's been warmer, it's been wetter, and we haven't had trigger points. We haven't had runaway global warming. And in fact, we had ice ages start when there were orders of magnitude more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than now. So something is fundamentally wrong. Maybe carbon dioxide doesn't drive climate change. Maybe it doesn't drive temperature on the planet.
About a decade ago, before I was in federal parliament, I heard about this global warming, and I heard that Professor Plimer written this book called Heaven and Earth. And I went and bought a copy of it, and I remember at the time the news agents or the bookstore said, look at me very strangely, and he said, do you want it in a brown paper bag? Because at that time, to have a dissenting view was considered basically almost a criminal offence. And since that day, I've held Professor Plimer in the highest esteem because he is prepared to put his head and his neck on the line and call BS on something he thinks is right. Because this is where we start. What a beautiful celebration. A gaggle of central planning socialists celebrating the Paris Accord, signing the Paris Accord. Now this is what the Paris Agreement is all about. Climate control knobs. And here we have a couple of scientists, or not scientists, people in white coats looking at this little CO2 knob here, the big knob of water vapour, the big adjustments around the corner of the sun, and up to this other bloke in the white coat. I found one that does the oceans. Now let's just assume that Ian is completely wrong. What's Paris actually achieving? If every single nation does exactly as their Paris commitments are, and they do those out to 2030, by the year 2100, the end of this century, we will have saved 0.05 of 1 degree. That's 1/20th of 1 degree. And that's assuming that what they say is correct. 1/20th of 1 degree. And of course, Australia, as we know, makes up less than 1.3% of the world's CO2. So anyone that stands up in Parliament and says, I am taking real action on climate change, they are either lying or they don't know what they're talking about. It is the most onerous in the world per capita. And per capita is the only way that you can measure it truly. That's what we signed up to. And when we hear all these nations have signed up about Paris as 190 nations, 170 nations, most of them have signed up not to make emissions reductions, but to get their hand on the cash. The direct cost of the subsidies will be $3,600 million, $3.6 billion added onto our electricity bills. That's $150 for every Australian, or $600 for a family of 4. To have Australians that can't afford to heat their homes in winter is an absolute disgrace for our nation. We are the richest energy country in the world with that coal seam that we have, the coal, the uranium, the gas that we have. We should be able to deliver our people the cheapest electricity in the world. And geez, it makes me angry when I hear stories pensioners can't heat their homes in winter. And we have about 6,000 or 7,000 excess winter deaths in this year. Cold homes are killing more than the road toll in this nation.
The government doesn't care.
So, can you get the message to your colleagues in the party room to get rid of subsidies for energy so that it doesn't kill people? The Paris Agreement should be scrapped.
Ladies and gentlemen, please pray for me. I live in South Australia. Now, in the September quarter last year, the power bill for my wife and I, rattling around in a house, and we're of the generation, when you walk out of a room, you turn off the light, our power bill was $3,300 for a quarter. Now, no pensioner can afford that, and that is an absolute disgrace in a state that holds 38% of the world's uranium. Wow. We have got this absolutely and totally wrong. I do not think that we will have a change yet because it has not hurt us enough electorally. We have to have people die on the operating table. We have to have many of you pensioners shuffle off from freezing. We have to have a situation far worse before there will be an electoral realisation by the coalition that something has to be done. In the interim, we will lose our major competitive industries, which we will never ever recover again. So we are at a crisis point. We have been let down by our own side.
David Saville, Wesley Fox Valley branch. This time last year, Rowan Dean wrote in the Spectator Australia, "The next election will be won in a canter by the political party and leader that ditches the Paris Agreement, scraps all clean energy targets and cancels all renewable subsidies." Last weekend, Terry McCrann wrote in the Weekend Australian, "At what point do the lemmings in the coalition party room wake up? Presumably only as they enter the cold, cold water of political oblivion."
We might take that as a comment.
Thank you. George Szabo from Roseville Branch. When are we going to stop being Labor light or New Labor and start being a traditional Conservative Liberal Party again, Craig?
Craig's in a difficult position. Let me give an answer that he would like to give but can't. The next election could easily be won by our coalition. It will be won on energy policy, and that includes nuclear. It will be won on immigration, and it will be won on debt. And it is so simple.